It's the old, very bad joke that there are two seasons in Minnesota, winter and road construction. But this year, that old joke seems worse than ever, as road construction is resulting in complaints on social media and to some lawmakers. This all comes at a time when more employers are ordering employees back to work. 3M, Target, the state of Minnesota are all three of those big ones ordering employees back to work more than they worked before. So what goes into scheduling road repairs? Does MNDOT talk to cities and towns about their road projects? MNDOT tells us in 2025 they have 180 road and bridge projects and 51 other infrastructure projects. Well, joining me now to talk about this is the person who answers reporters' questions for MNDOT, Anne Meyer. Thank you very much for coming
thanks for having us. This has been a busy season. A lot of folks are talking, so let's answer some of their questions.
Is it busier than most seasons?
Somewhat, yes. I don't know if in terms of number, but certainly in terms of impact. We're hearing from a lot more folks, and that could be for a lot of reasons. As mentioned, more people are returning to work. Maybe they're coming into different work zones than they did in previous years. Different areas of construction are in play this year. Certainly 94 has been a big impact. We've been on 494 in Bloomington for a couple years now. So we've got some really big projects also coming into play.
All right. Well, we got a lot of questions from the public on Interstate 94. Obviously, that's a big one. You're replacing bridges there. One of the questions that we've gotten a lot for 94 and also other projects is why, when people drive by, do they sometimes see nobody working on these sites, or then sometimes see 5 or 6 people? Why not put all your people on Interstate 94, or all your contractors on Interstate 94, get it done quickly, and move on to the other one?
Let's make one thing clear. We're not replacing bridges at that site. We're repairing bridges. It's a lot different work in terms of that involvement.
True, okay.
And yeah, different work needs to happen. A lot. It's not just about the pavement. Sometimes it's underneath the pavement that's happening. So we've got a foundation that needs to be addressed to handle all of the weight and traffic that's happening. We've got drainage. Certainly that was an issue on 35W for a few years, and we really put a lot of effort into fixing that particular situation.
Yes.
That was a big impact for several years, not too long ago.
Flash flooding.
And now we're not having that same impact there. 94 is unique in the sense that we've got a river that we're crossing there. We've got the green, or one of the trains that we're also going over, a highway. So we've got a lot of different things happening in a very short, compact area, and we're keeping traffic open in that area so that some lanes can still be utilized for traffic, but other areas can be used for that construction. And sometimes it's, things need to settle. A lot of work needs to happen in these projects. It's not just having people out there doing.
Everybody go into that, because it's such a big project.
It is, but I'm also trying to explain that there's a lot of work that needs to happen there that can't maybe necessarily happen all at once. Things need to settle. We need to test things to make sure that it's the right products that we're paying for going down. Safety is a huge concern. We need to keep a safe zone for folks to work. Sometimes what you're doing under a bridge is what is the focus of the day, and those are the contractors that are there. So each project is unique. Each project comes with challenges, and we're working through those areas. That's why we plan so hard. So many of these projects have been on our sheets for 10 plus years. 4 years out, when we really know we've got the funding and some other commitments there, we're making more finalized plans. So it's 4 years before we even turn dirt in some places. All this information is online. We want folks to get active in this information. We want them to know what's happening on our routes well before they know. We say it all the time, know before you go.
Well, your website is very good. If you Google MNDOT construction, these things will come up.
Well, and I want to talk about 511 too, because that's a traveler information center that can show you where the slowdowns are.
We'll get to that in just a little bit, but again, going back to the number of projects, couldn't MNDOT have fewer projects and have more people working on them?
I think there's lots of ways to look at all things, but we're taking into mind what work needs to be done. Certainly we have a lot of infrastructure for MNDOT alone. We're talking 12,000 miles straight wide. 4,000 bridges that we maintain, plus other infrastructure. That's only 10% of all the roadways that are in Minnesota. The rest are local, city, state, county, or I apologize, city, county, township. Everybody's trying to work within a very limited window, because here in Minnesota, weather does impact when we can start construction and when we can end construction, and sometimes dictates what we can do in between. So we're constantly taking some of those challenges into account. We're taking we are communicating with our local partners so that people know what's coming down the pipeline, but sometimes it's really hard to balance everything all at once. We've all got the funding that we can spend. We've all got limited windows in which this work can be done. And so that's why we keep constantly telling people to be prepared for this construction every season.
The limited window, you told me, is the weather. That's the big one.
Yes.
Is it a question, some people wonder, is it a question of you being worried, MNDOT being worried about the loss of federal money coming up with the Trump administration implementing so many cuts?
I know we're keeping an eye on things in Washington. We rely on federal funding to help us get through some of these projects. The state can't handle these costs alone. Every big project in Minnesota is supported by some federal funding. That's how it's been throughout this entire process. The federal government is very aware of all the projects that we have in line. Again, we have a plan right now 10 years out that looks at all the projects, every highway that needs to be somewhat repaired. And in many cases, we're maintaining the system we have to keep it going longer. We've got millions of people driving in Minnesota, making tens of millions of trips every day. A lot of folks rely on our transportation system, and it takes this work to keep it healthy, to keep it going, and to make sure that everybody can get to where they need to be safely at the end of the night.
Representative Andrew Meyer, I believe no relation to you, represents the western suburbs, and he wrote a letter to the commissioner, expressing concern, wondering why not work 24 hours a day on some of these sites. But also, he says that he's gotten a lot of complaints about multiple projects in kind of the same geographic area. In other words, 394 and 55, 394 and 94. All those seem overlapping, or else, parallel roads, 494 is a mess. What do you say to that?
We've received that letter. We're working with the representative to talk about some of his concerns. Let's talk about the 24/7 factor. We do have maintenance crews that are out there ready to work 24/7 a day, but that can be more challenging on a project. Certainly the costs go up. Certainly the safety factor is another area. At 4 a.m. you're dealing with a different situation in the middle of the night than you are at 4 p.m. or 6 a.m. Many of these projects are really working 18 hours a day, in some cases 16 or 6 days a week. So there's a lot of work happening in a big span. And these are people who there's also people who live around these projects who also are aware of the work happening. And sometimes we need to also be considerate of that factor as well. So there's lots that we're trying to balance to get important work done, to minimize impact, knowing that there will be some. And that's why we all have to play a role in safety and in getting through these seasons that can be more challenging.
And, everybody wants good roads. I mean, we all remember the 35W bridge disaster, but I do wonder if sometimes you're being held to the 35W bridge standard, because that went up so quickly.
That was such a different scenario. This is why we plan ahead. We want to get the best bang for our dollar. We know that these projects cost millions of dollars to do. That's why planning can really be vital in the process. To understand what's needed, how we can afford to do it, put that in the framework of other projects that are needed, and trying to get important work done. This is something, construction we know is coming. We're going to have construction next season. We already know what some of those projects are. All the more reason to get active, to get involved, and know before you go.
I was talking to the chair of the Senate Transportation Committee, Scott Dibble, earlier, and he said that you folks have, there are more projects this year because you have more money this year, all going back to that 2023 legislative session when the state had a $17 billion surplus. He said a lot of pains were taken to make sure that MNDOT got a lot of money.
And we're not the only ones getting this money. Certainly local communities also need this, because it is millions of dollars to repair a roadway. And so sometimes that's very challenging for a community to do. So federal dollars have always come into play. We do have more money, but we also know these projects are more costly than they were even 10, 15 years ago, when the last time maybe we improved that pavement or did something on that particular section of roadway. So we've got a lot happening at once. We're trying to get it all done in a narrow window and spreading it out so that we can still keep lanes open for many parts of this project. Sometimes clearly we do have weekend closures, but that's happening when less traffic is out there. So we're constantly trying to get the work done, keeping all of the different factors in mind. And it's a challenge. And this is what we're trying to explain to folks, is that it isn't easy, but there is a lot of information out there ready for folks to utilize so they can be smarter behind the wheel and really help to minimize the stress factor when it comes to driving through construction season.
Do you consult with the city of Minneapolis, the city of St. Louis Park, even the Met Council, which has done a lot of construction in the South Minneapolis area? over the past few years? And I know those are not your projects, but do you consult with them and say, hey, what are you going to be doing?
We're constantly in communication with one another. We're all working within the same small windows. We're all trying to make improvements, knowing that, some of these projects will be happening near one another, and we're trying to adjust. Certainly, we've got planning that's 10 years out, and that's items that we share throughout with our local partners, our state partners, communities. We certainly share this information with the public a lot on our project pages. There's lots of ways to understand what's happening, what's going on, and we're constantly in communication. It may not always dictate stuff, but in terms of projects not happening, but yes, this is a constant conversation. We're all working within very tight parameters, and we're trying to do the best that we can with minimizing as best that we can the impact to the public.
And we've already reported that the 394, the start of the intense 394 work was actually delayed because of the concerns about the overlap.
Yes, and we're going to see 94.
Take that into account.
We really do, because we recognize that has a big impact. For the 94,
so it was delayed just a few weeks.
Yes, and so some work is going to start on 394 so that we can wrap things up on the 94 project. And we really see some lanes changing before in August, you should see a dramatic decrease in terms of that impact on 94, because we want to get that work done before the state fair starts, before college classes starts. But then yes, we're going to have that 394 project start. But keep in mind, we're able to do some work there, but keep certain lanes open while we do work in other areas. That's a challenging area too, because a lot of it's elevated, so a lot of bridges.
So the state fair, that's something you're taking into consideration, of course.
Well, yes, and even with weekend closures. We don't do that on holiday weekends, so that limits the amount of weekends we can do some work. We try and limit some of those impacts, knowing that we've got different challenges throughout each project too that may delay or postpone when some work can happen. Maybe rain is coming into play, like we've seen with the heat and the heavy rains that we've seen. So there's constantly a balance of what we're trying to work through.
I want to give you a chance because people are frustrated. I know that you've gotten more calls. I've heard you on other radio stations, seen you on other TV stations. If the people are frustrated, what should they do? You've got some tools to at least let people know what's going on.
Well, and we hear you. We know the complaints are out there. We're seeing them on social media. We're hearing them personally ourselves. We don't ever want to feel as if your complaints are being ignored, but we also want to empower you as a traveler to know that there is a lot of information out there to help you prepare for this impact, get ready for what that may do along your route. So get involved. If there's a project on your route that you want to know more about, go to that project page, learn some more. There's a lot of emails
on the website. They've got individual pages devoted to each project.
And you can sign up in many cases, you can sign up for email, so that we're going to send you information as that project changes, as different things happen, whether there's updates with the project, delays, or when it opens. 511, this is a tool I really talk about a lot because it really can help you know before you go. So you can see where the congestion parts are, where traffic is slowing down, what are the work zones, what are the traffic impacts, is there a crash that is now coming into play that may impact your route. Knowing that before you get behind the wheel can give you more options behind the wheel to make that less stressful. If you're already in congestion and you're in a work zone, your options are limited at that point.
Yes,
so
they are.
The more you know before you go, honestly, it really can make a difference to hopefully relieve some of that stress.
Well, Anne Meyer, thank you very much for coming and answering all of these questions. And I know you get questions all the time, but you answer them all the time, but thank you very much.
No, and we thank everyone else for their patience this season.
And that does it for this edition of Talking Points. Please write me with any comments or suggestions at esme@wcco.com. Thank you so much for watching. Esme Murphy, WCCO News.